to be back on First and Now, highlight of our Tuesdays. Matt Baker alongside Bob the Moj Marjanovic and Nick Kowalski. Off day for the BC Lions as they'll get back to work Wednesday ahead of a big one Saturday here against Saskatchewan, our Watermelon Smash. More on that as we go along here. But gentlemen, it's another winning week and pretty darn satisfying to see the squad play a more complete game at Commonwealth Stadium. Moj, your takeaways mainly.
I think you nailed it. It's probably their most complete game of the season, both offensively, defensively, even on special teams. I thought, the Seven McGee punt return for a touchdown kind of gave you hope that this team does have a game breaker back there. But yeah, I thought it was just a complete win. Yet at the same time, there are things that have to be worked on, things that you want to clean up, as you always do. We talk about penalties, maybe a couple of assignments weren't executed on defense. Ford had a couple of opportunities to make big plays in the first half, and he failed to do so. But other than that, I think this team, it was a positive step. And now, again, like as we mentioned, just got to keep building.
Yeah, and I love what Buck Pierce's philosophy is, and he said it here on CKNW on Monday morning with Simi Sarah. The result is the result. No matter what it is, you relish it for a few hours. They know they have to get back to work. They know there was maybe a lack of finish in the second half, only coming away with, 2 field goals and a safety after jumping out to the 24-7 lead at the break. But that's a good philosophy to have, Nick.
Yeah, brick by brick, right? But my takeaway is that we don't jinx things around here. People are talking about maybe throwing out Nathan Rourke's stats against Edmonton was maybe going to jinx him, but that doesn't matter, right? And not even just Rourke, but James Butler has a career now of, dominating Edmonton. I was even thinking about that in 2022. We went there in October to play the Elks, and James Butler had 24 carries for over $142 on the ground, and we're seeing, that Winnipeg style offense that Buck Pierce has brought over. Seven guys blocking, Riley Pickett, Il Manning coming in for extra packages, and 30 carries for James Butler. Running up the clock. But you know what they say: if you can't beat it or if you can't stop it, we're just going to keep running, and that's what the BC Lions did on Sunday.
What can you say, Moj, about that offensive line? Honor roll recipients, the top graded unit, as was James Butler at running back. Very impressive.
Well, props to Coach Charbonneau because there's been a lot of plug and play with injuries. I mean, Dejan Allen, Packer, Coach Schur, all out. And that's 3 starters, guys. That's not like,
right.
A couple of backups. I mean, David Foucault's another player. Forget Foucault. So that's 4 guys, right? And Foucault is obviously your 6th. So to be missing, say, 4 of your top 6 linemen and go in there and rush for, James Butler almost rushing for 200 yards, tells you that these players are ready to play when called upon. They know their assignment. They know their alignment. They always like to say that, assignment and alignment. And the guy that I was happy for, Andrew Pearson, I touched on him in the huddle this week on CKNW. He's a guy that, as I mentioned, and this isn't any disrespect, he's not a guy that you say looks good coming off the bus, right? I mean, and usually when you talk about guys that look good off the bus, they're not players, right? They just look good coming off the bus. Andrew Pearson is listed at 6'3", 300. As I mentioned during the huddle, I think that's up for debate. It's the inquiry signs up. Maybe that was on a good day. But I'll tell you what, you got to love the way this guy plays and the heart that he plays with and the passion. And it's that work ethic and that passion that have probably made him one of the most popular guys on the team and probably one of the most respected guys on the team because he gives you everything that he has. And it was nice to see him go out there and have a great game at center, and conversely, the rest of the linemen all stepping up and playing well as well. So to me, that's what I kind of took away from that offensive line.
We'll have a word with the guy who does the website bios, see if we can confirm those measurables, so to speak.
Come on, 6 feet? No.
Lane Gannon University. I think I took it from them 8 years ago. But very quickly, and speaking about Pearson, let's be honest here. This is a guy, last couple years, final roster decisions in camp, probably a guy who's been on the bubble, but he's found a way to stick and found a way to contribute when he gets thrust into a starting role.
Because he knows every position on the offensive line, right? It's, if this guy was 6'6" and 350, you wouldn't even see him. He'd be in the NFL.
Sure.
Because of his passion and his work ethic, right? So, like I said, to me, and I know Nick will probably weigh in as well, but I just think I'm always rooting for a guy like Andrew Pearson.
Yeah, and we can all use our eyes, and I think the last couple of weeks we've been seeing that there are holes available, and there's time for the quarterback under center to make throws. But for offensive line metrics, I always resort to stuff or sites like PFF now, and like a guy like Jarrell Broxton, he's been credited with 1 pressure allowed all season long. And I was joking with Matt this morning that it might be our duty this year to make sure that Darrell, or at least we got to get him whether it's an all CFL recognition, most outstanding offensive lineman. It's early, but Jarrell's put a couple seasons now together of pretty solid play at that left tackle position. And I know some voters have kind of maybe decided their vote for that award maybe in June and just gave it to a certain individual.
Stanley Bryant. Yeah, okay, come on, yeah.
But I think it's our duty now to maybe start pumping Jarrell Broxton's tires as one of the best offensive linemen in this league. He's graded only Jamarcus Hardrick stands above him in the PFF grades, and to me that checks out just by using your eyes.
Absolutely. Yeah, 1 pressure allowed through 6 games. That's the second time, we're talking about the entire unit. He was the highest graded individual O-lineman. That's his second PFF weekly honor. The first one came in week 3 following a loss to Winnipeg. But certainly a lot to like, and very key as well. There's the season series wrapped up with 1 division rival. Have a chance to still be alive in one with Saskatchewan on Saturday, but all of a sudden, Moj, stacking a couple of these wins, a chance to make it 3 in a row against a hot Rider team coming off a loss, though. This Western logjam is just going to get more exciting if the Lions continue to get healthy and continue to stack wins.
Well, yeah, and, it's obviously a big game against Saskatchewan. It's a home game. You want to win, obviously, your home games. You want to win every game, but especially at home. I look at Saskatchewan. It's so funny, too, because, a lot of times you'll see people look at a team, oh, you know what? We're catching them at a great time, right? They lost their last game against Calgary. They're kind of in a bit of a tough situation. It's, catching them at the right time. And then you have the other school of thought that says, oh man, they're going to be so angry. They're going to be looking for a rebound in this game. So we'll find out Saturday which Saskatchewan team shows up. But I honestly believe with Corey Mace at the helm, the pride of Port Moody, I should mention, I think they're going to come out firing on all cylinders. They want to avenge what happened to them. They got embarrassed at home by the Stampeders. And when I say that, they got embarrassed in the trenches. Calgary out-physicaled that team, and as a result, they wound up losing that football game. I think you're going to see a very fired-up Saskatchewan team come Saturday at BC Place.
Yeah, and they're led on offense by a guy like A.J. Ouellette, right? And he's the definition of a bruiser running back, and we saw that firsthand in week 3 on the road at Sask. And I don't know about you guys, but the last couple of weeks, and even on Sunday, there were some murmurs around there that can the BC Lions handle the Edmonton's potent rushing attack? And I think that was answered on Sunday.
Yeah,
and it's guys like Tomasi Lalule and stepping in now, right? And Marcus Moore, because Dwayne Hendricks, Jonah Tavai, they're out of the lineup right now, and Josh Woods, I thought, made a couple big plays in the run game on Sunday, and that's where you're going to be in for a tough game against Sask in the trenches.
Well, the one good thing with the Lions, and I'm pretty sure Sask's offensive line is banged up a little bit, so we'll see where that comes Saturday, but that's an advantage for the Lions. But here's the thing, too, is when you have injuries, you need guys to step up. The Lions have had injuries on the defensive line, and guess who stood up or stood out for the team? I mean, you just mentioned a couple of those guys. So guys have stepped up. We talked about it on the offensive line. Guys coming in and stepping up. Next man up. And the Lions have had a great job of that this year.
Yeah, Jonah Tavai, Dwayne Hendricks. Again, now we won't see a practice until Wednesday of this week. We'll see if those guys continue to be full go, maybe get some reinforcements on the defensive line.
By the way, I love Tomasi Lalule.
Great name, too.
Oh,
yeah.
And there was even in the Montreal game, when I can't remember, it was Covington sack. He took a double team and just basically drove it back right into the quarterback. The old expression we always talk about, you don't make the tackle, but you make the play. And he chased down Ford with Betts, and Betts got there a couple of steps ahead of him. But, man, I love what he's bringing. I love the push that he's bringing. I love the energy that he's bringing. And long live the bloodline.
Yeah, and you that's why the bloodline. It was
baby, work with me here. We're gonna get that going.
Polynesian D line. Yeah, we were about it starting.
You were gonna get some
I gotta
Shirts
get it.
made up.
No, I gotta get the Ulafala.
Yeah.
Like the tribal chief winners.
You got to get them nicknames though, right? Because you've called Sione the tribal chief on air, right?
Yeah.
Got to develop.
Baby Tavai.
Yep.
Baby Tavai, yeah.
I've got to come up with one for Tomasi.
Let's get on that. Let's get a sponsor involved if we have to. But yeah, defensively speaks for itself. Before we get to Glen Suitor and talk more about Saskatchewan, sticking with the defensive side of things, really, and I'm on my rewatch, it kind of hits you really the longest drive that Edmonton have where they seemed like most of a threat to do something was that first one they had when Trey scrambled a couple times and it ends with a deep ball, and credit to Gary Peters, he yanks it out of the receiver's hand and you get that big turnover. We talk all the time, got to make an early statement, got to make a big play, and I think that takeaway at the start kind of deflated the crowd and deflated the Elks a little bit. Great to see the defense limit Trey Ford to just 4 completions, I think. And really a standout effort by Benny's group.
Yeah, and again, like I said, great effort, great job. But there's, they're going to be watching the tape. They're going to be seeing things that they got to clean up a little bit. Maybe the contain on Ford on a couple of those runs. You're always striving to improve. Micah Awe got Rankin got a step on him, and Ford overthrew him. And there's another overthrow as well. I'm trying to remember who it was, but there were a couple times where Ford had passes that he missed. So you got to clean that up. And here's the other thing too. You're going to have adversity hit you in the game. It's how you react to the adversity. And I thought a great example of it was when it was 17-7. McGee returns the punt for a touchdown and it's called back. Now you're backed up to what? I think it was like your 5-yard line. The Lions were within their 10-yard line, wherever they were.
Yeah.
So
5, yep.
In that situation, I mean, we were talking about it during the broadcast. We were just hoping that the Lions would get decent field position so that you wouldn't give Edmonton good field position. The last thing you wanted in that instance was a 2-and-out, because Edmonton would have got the ball hit at the 50. And now you're looking at, say, a score or a touchdown right before the half to make the score either 17-10 or 17-14. Plus, Edmonton gets the ball to start the second half, and they're feeling good about themselves heading into the locker room. But guess what happened? The offense took the ball and said, screw it, we're going to score anyway. What was it, 105-yard drive, whatever it was, and took the ball to the house. So to me, that was a great reaction to the adversity that they faced in that situation. And that's what you love to see. And to me, that was the football game right there. That was a turning point.
Yeah, and can we talk about that touchdown pass to Stanley Burial? Because I think there was no chance Nathan Rourke wasn't putting that ball right through the hands of a defender. That thing had some zip on it. And that's a Nathan Rourke you love to see, right? Like you said, Moj, he didn't take no for an answer, led the team down the field. And a guy like Burial too, like that's his 4th touchdown of the year. He's really emerging into like that third kind of target for outside of McInnes and Hatcher for Nathan. And Javon Katoy came alive, obviously got in the end zone 2 on Sunday. And you love to see with this receiving core, because there were questions, right, about the 4th and 5th options in this group going into training camp, and Burial and Eberhard obviously keep their spots in the starting lineup, and a guy like Burial is just thriving. And
we haven't even mentioned Justin McInnes. He had 1 catch.
Yeah.
Right? And think about a player like him, and I guarantee you it could be this week, it could be next week, it could be a game where Justin Hatcher has 8 catches and Keon Hatcher, or pardon me, Justin McInnes has 8 catches and Keon Hatcher has 1, or Stanley Burial has 1. It's a deep and talented receiving core, and I think you're just going to see a rotation of players who wind up getting the football based on, the decisions that Nathan Rourke makes while looking at the defense.
Yeah, and we talked about this, you and I, on the bus to the plane after. Nathan Rourke, 4 incompletions, but 1 hit the crossbar. The other was intercepted, the unfortunate one.
Broxton's helmet.
So really 2 that were only not caught by receivers. And yes, and he's now got 12 300-yard games on his young career. That's the most by Canadian-born quarterbacks. Russ Jackson next with 9, I think it is. So... Yep, Nathan Rourke looks to be A-OK, and I'm guessing they'll continue to take it a bit slower in practice as they get back on the field Wednesday, Thursday, a walkthrough Friday, and then Saturday, the Saskatchewan Roughriders come to town in the second of 3 meetings. Watermelon Smash, the tailgate party, backyard party presented by PlayNow Sports beginning at noon. More details on what's going on a little bit later. We'll get to some of the intriguing parts of this matchup here before long. But up next from the CFL on TSN, Glen Suitor talking Lions, Riders, maybe go around the league with Suits as well, as we continue on First and Now, presented by World Vision Canada and Coors Light. First and Now continues on 730 CKNW or wherever you get your podcast. Shout out to our great sponsors, World Vision Canada and Coors Light. Lions Roughriders, a 4 o'clock kickoff. Moj to my left and Julio will have the pregame show beginning at 3 o'clock here on CKNW, and it's our great pleasure to welcome back to First and Now for the first time in 2025, the pride of CFL on TSN, former host of the Team 1040 football show with David Pratt. Yes. How about that, Suits? It is Glen Suitor. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and you mentioned the Coors Light, and I think I must be a shareholder by now in Coors Light. I don't know, like if you invest that much money throughout your life in Coors Light, are you considered a partner?
I'd sure hope so. Well, they should have you as an ambassador. That's all I know. Like, how much more charismatic can you get, right?
Suits, let's get to the fact of the matter. Smoke, Saskatchewan, your thoughts.
Moj, how are you, man? It's good to see you.
That was a half-ass proud, but I thought it was all right.
It was on brand. It was on brand.
Bike lanes, can't have it. Can't have it.
That's a whole other show right there. Yeah. Nick's just looking at us like, what the heck are you talking about?
I'll get filled in later.
Yes. Trust me, we could write a book on all the great stories we have. But Suits, we'll talk Lions Riders. I understand you've got the Alouettes and Argos this week, but let's go back to Regina last weekend. Would have been Friday night with the smoke and the air quality. It was delayed. At one point, I think they were going to start at 11:15 local time. End up playing Saturday. Take us through what it was like being a part of that uncertainty on Friday.
Yeah, it was. First of all, the first thing that jumps off the page for me is the Rider fans, and I know you guys won't be surprised, but it was going to be close to a sellout, or at least their configuration sellout right now at around 30,000, and I would suggest that there were still 12 to 15,000 people in the stadium at 10:45 at night. And it looked like many of them were into a few Coors Light and everything else that was being served, because the bar stayed open the whole time, which was just hilarious to watch. But I digress in that. The fans were still engaged and in it. The smoke never looked like it was going to clear. As you guys know, tap dancing in a show for that long can start to be tricky, and you certainly don't want to bore people. But at the same time, there's only so many ways you can break down the quarterback matchup and things like that over 2.5 hours of live TV. So that was a bit challenging for us. I got behind the camera and started messing around for a while just to kill some time. And from a league's perspective, I would say the first real challenge for Stuart Johnson to sort of negotiate or navigate this issue, which you guys know is going to be one that we're going to face probably quite often, unfortunately, in the summer. So, I hope that in the future they put a cap on how long they're going to wait. Yeah. And I heard rumors, and these are just rumors, that the weather station in Saskatchewan felt like the wind was going to be in the right direction and pick up to a point where the smoke would clear. So in fairness to the league, the Players Association, and the team, both teams in this case, that they were getting the information that hang in there, it's going to clear well enough, or enough to play anyway, very, very quickly here. So I think that message kept coming through, and they tried to hold off. But to think of players sitting around in the locker room for 4 hours or 4.5 hours and then trying to kick off at 11, that game would have ended at 2:30 in the morning. Mm-hmm. That starts to become a player's safety issue. Not to mention those fans that I mentioned off the top that, they sat in there for 4.5 hours. I think hopefully in the future they look at it and say 2 hours tops. If it's not clear by then, we'll regroup and reschedule.
Glenn, with that game last week too, Calgary obviously had to stay in the University of Regina dorms, but they ended up taking it to the Riders, and obviously with the Riders coming into town this Saturday, was there anything alarming you noticed with the Riders game last weekend, or do you just kind of chalk it up to a one-off?
Yeah, it's a good question, because the alarming part was definitely there, and it was that they didn't commit to the run. Like their team with AJ Ouellette, with 3 games in a row that was right around the 100 mark, and then over 100 in their last one. They had the bye before the last game, but the game that previous, he had over 100 yards in that one. And for some reason, they just went away from it. Now, part of that is that Calgary talked them out of it. Calgary was playing well enough up front and canceling gaps, and because of that, they thought they couldn't run, I guess. But I think they're much better when AJ Ouellette is rolling, and that was what was alarming to me. But what is not alarming is the play of Calgary. Calgary, with Vernon Adams slinging it around, and BC fans know well enough what he can do when he's on top of his game. He looks great. He's rallied. He's brought some energy. But the biggest improvement on that Stampeder team, to me, outside of Vernon, is their defense. They're a bunch of no-name guys for the most part. They fly around like they don't know any better. They're making big plays down the field. Their secondary is shutting down the big play down, the big bomb. And they're not allowing a lot of points. I mean, I think they've allowed 4 or 5 majors all season. So I think that's been their biggest improvement, their defense.
The thing I like about that win by Calgary, and I know we'll get to Saskatchewan here in a second, but they were faced with tremendous adversity. It suits, athletes are creatures of habit, right? And when you take them out of their routine, out of those habits, things can go sideways. And there's a perfect example for things to go sideways for the Calgary Stampeders, staying in dorms. Some guys were staying at the hotel, like I think 4 or 5 guys stayed at the Hotel Sask. I heard rumors some guys were staying in Moose Jaw. Whatever the case may be, there was a tremendous amount of, hey, let's just try to get this done, flying by the seat of our pants. And they go out there and they played the game that they did. That tells me a little bit about the resiliency and the toughness of this Calgary team. And I think they're legit. I mean, yeah, they've got some new guys on defense. We'll see if they're exposed at some point. But as of right now, I think they're a legit football team.
Yeah, for sure. And, when you see the first-round pick, first overall, Damien Alford, just look like...
See right there, Suits.
Yeah, exactly. Like he is...
The Moose.
Forget about being, not being out of place as a young rookie in the lineup. He looks like a star. I mean, this guy can out jump anyone, it looks like, and he's got breakaway speed. Long strider, but breakaway speed. On that deep ball, there was a bust in the coverage. The DB in that situation caught him when he went to catch it. He closed to about 3 yards away, and then when Alford picked up the ball and took off, he started to separate, on that 80-yard touchdown. He started to pull away to where when they crossed the goal line, it was about a 7 or 8 yard gap. And I thought, wow, he just gathered himself, caught the ball, turned around from a dead stop, and outran the DB who was jogging towards him and then sprinted. So, I think that guy's got legit speed, and Vernon Adams got them feeling like they're unbeatable. And I think, he's a great leader. We know that. But having said that, how about the way Nathan played in Edmonton? And it's funny because I've talked to a bunch of people who say, well, it was Edmonton. And I go, we really got to stop doing that. This is a pro team, and a team that for quarters here and there have shown what that defense can be. They haven't shown it enough this year, and that's one of the reasons they're struggling. But Nathan had his way with that team, and I love the play calling by Buck as well.
Glenn, when it comes to the West Division overall, the Lions right now are 3-3, 0-2 without Nathan Rourke. But do you have to wait until Saturday to kind of put them in that top tier with Sask, Winnipeg, obviously, and now Calgary's establishing themselves there? Or you already think BC belongs there? Or are you waiting for Saturday to kind of prove that to you?
Yeah, I don't think they have to prove anything. I think every game is a different journey, and we can sort of. I would suggest we sort of rank teams around the Labor Day mark because they'll all have faced each other. We'll know what they look like head to head, and once you know that and you've seen that, Calgary beat Winnipeg when Dickinson at the beginning of this run, the last two games, beginning of it, I was talking to him about it, and he said we have the gauntlet coming up. We have Winnipeg twice, Calgary, and Winnipeg twice, Montreal, and who was the other one? It was, yeah. Well,
we'll find it.
Yeah, he said it was the gauntlet, and the gauntlet meaning that will be the test for their team, the Calgary Stampeders. Are they a team that's made improvements in the offseason enough to beat the top dogs in the league? And Winnipeg and Montreal were the two big names there. So they beat one already. They play Winnipeg again coming up, and Calgary just beat the 4-0 Saskatchewan Roughriders. That was the other team, Saskatchewan, what they just played. So, I think they were looking at it like a test because they're so young and so new. But with Nathan Rourke, like, I'll ask you guys this question: Who do you think right now, not past history, but right now, who's the best tailback in the league?
Well, I know who's leading the league in rushing, and he's done pretty well the last couple outings. Is James Butler?
Exactly, Matt. And like when I look at his versatility, and when Buck starts to call those screens in certain situations. Sometimes you can double screen it with Javon Catoy, and it really puts a bind on the defense to decide which way they want to flow to the football. And Nathan's recognizing the way he did in 22. We knew it would come back. It's back, and he looks red hot. James Butler to me, maybe Justin Rankin, who Edmonton abandoned last week. Those are the top two. I mean, Brady Oliveira's been nicked up.
AJ Ouellette had a big outing against the Lions a few weeks ago, right?
He did, but they got talked out of it against Calgary, and I think he only had 5 or 6 carries in the whole game. So, I just love the versatility of James Butler. I really do. Like I watched that game at home, just sat in and enjoyed it, and I thought, man, this guy he's got it all. He's got power. He's got quickness in the hole. He's got breakaway speed. That touchdown of about 20 yards down in Edmonton territory, he just has these little bursts that beat the tackle, the tackler, and the next step is one of those real quick cuts that gets him in open field. So if I were to rank him right now, I'd probably put James Butler as the number one running back in the league right now.
By the way, Calgary's gauntlet, they actually have Winnipeg a third time coming up on August 9th. They're back at McMahon Stadium after a trip to Ottawa. And you mentioned it, Montreal before that, and then these 2 Winnipeg games as well as Saskatchewan. Right. Switching sides out of the defense here, this is a Lions defense that I think kind of progressively has gotten better. I mean, you look at one of those losses to Winnipeg here back in week 3, the defense kept the team in it, just they couldn't get anything going offensively. What do you like about that unit led by Mike Benavides, your former colleague at TSN?
Well, I knew they'd get it together. I think tackling, they have to keep on their P's and Q's there for sure. I think it was an important game for Gary Peters to have a big game in Edmonton. He's a great veteran, leads by example, but it looked like he was off to a bit of a slow start and needed a big game, and I think he had that against Trey Ford. So that's important. Getting Josh Woods back, just outstanding, and is really going to help against the run. So you got to love that. But I think this is a work in progress on D. I agree with you, Matt, that I think they're improving, and they played much better against Trey Ford. And hey, if you want to talk about quarterback decisions there, I'm not sure what they're doing now in Edmonton.
Yeah,
but that's another story, another question. But to answer your question on the defense, I bet if you talk to Mike, he would say we're getting there, but we're not there yet. They have to be more consistent against the run. and get teams in second and long.
Well, I think one of the things, Suits, that really helped, and even when they lost those 3 games in a row, you look at the defense in the first half, they played pretty well for the most part. I mean, they kept the team in the game, so to speak. But then eventually you wear down when your offense isn't moving the football and isn't producing, right? And there was a great example of that in Saskatchewan, I believe, where Saskatchewan drove the ball, scored a touchdown, Lions got the ball back 2 and out. Saskatchewan gets the ball back, and again, now your defense has just been on the field for like 6 minutes, and it's a 2 and out. Now you got to go back out there. But what we've seen the last couple of weeks is complementary football. I mean, Mike Alway's doing a hit on local radio this morning. He goes, I counted up the tackles at the end of the game, and there was like 16 or 17, whatever the number was, right? Well, yeah, when you have the ball for 42 minutes and your defense is only out there 18 minutes, your defense is going to be fired up. They're going to be playing with a lot of juice. Conversely, the other team's offense isn't exactly going to be in a rhythm. So, again, complementary football, when the offense is going well, it obviously helps the defense.
Yeah, just so much, and it's, I'll even go even beyond just sort of the physical fatigue that happens. And I've said this many times, and people always ask me, why, when there's a lopsided time of possession, and wow, was it lopsided in BC's favor against Edmonton, but why, when it's a lopsided time of possession, that the defense is getting tired, but the offense, who has it all that time, isn't getting tired? Because when you're on offense, you're basically on every play running to a spot, whether it's a route running from the receivers or the running back stepping to pick up a blitz or getting out into the flat or whatever he's doing. The quarterback has his determined drop. Yes, sometimes they have to ad lib, but for the most part, the X's and O's are line to line. This is your route. This is what you have to run. The defense has to wait until that evolves. So they take 1,000 more steps, stopping, starting, trying to figure out who's, what the route is, what the concepts are, and then flying around to the football. So they're actually moving more than the offense is, if for lack of a better way to say it. But there's also the emotional factor that people never talk about, but is true, because they're human beings. And when you talk about modes, that quick 2 and out, you just went and did everything in your power, didn't get the stop. So you're trying to figure out why you didn't get a stop from their other offense. And you're looking at the tablet and you're trying to figure it out. Your offense is now on the field and they go 2 and out. And before you can even gather why it was happening, you just have to get back on the field and just buckle up and get ready to start again. So there's a real emotional hit. And the other part of that emotion is like when you hit a penalty. You get a team on defense, your defense is on the field, you've got to stop, and then you get a PI or a roughing the passer, and that gives them another set of downs. Same sort of deflated feeling, and that usually turns into another couple of first downs, and now the other team does have rhythm. So there's a lot involved when you need your offense to make a few plays, even if they have to punt after 2 first downs. That's good. That gives you a rest, gives you a chance to look at the tablet, gives you a chance to regroup.
Well said, sir. Always love the breakdown going around the league, and enjoy Montreal, my friend. We were just there last week, and never a bad time there. So thanks for stopping by.
Jacopo Italian Restaurant, Old Port. Went there with Dwayne Vanu, Giulio Caravetta, and the legend Tony Doe. Giulio's Italian, and if he raves about loving Italian restaurant, it's good. Jacopo, thank me later.
Jacopo, okay. And the sandwich shop. What's the sandwich shop?
Schwartz's. What do you mean, what's the sandwich shop? Come on, Suits.
Not your first rodeo.
Yeah, I'm going to be there with I'm bringing back the spice and all of it. You gotta hit it. You gotta hit it every trip. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Suits.
Thanks, Suits.
The BC Lions take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders Saturday, July 19th at 4 p.m. It's the biggest rivalry party of the year with the Watermelon Smash. This year, you get in on the smashing, happening live on Terry Fox Plaza starting at noon. Tickets start at just $19. Don't miss it. Visit bclions.com and get ready to roar as one!
Back on First and Now, presented by World Vision Canada, a national charity partner of the BC Lions. Visit bclions.com/worldvision to become a supporter. A shout out to our great partners at Coors Light as well. $5 Molson Coors products on the tailgate this week. More on that when we tee up more of the Watermelon Smash in our final segment. And we kind of hit on it in the open as far as the stakes go here. Second of 3 meetings, Lions and Riders will meet the final game of the regular season back in Regina. And boy, oh boy, might that one have some heavy implications. But let's focus on the here and now. We hit on it earlier, Moj, but Trevor Harris back at quarterback. In fact, he was the top graded offensive player of Week 6 in the CFL. And obviously, they move a little different with Trevor at the helm, as is the case. He's had some injuries the last few years, and they've struggled, but a good little test for this Lions defense.
Yeah, but, you also look at that yardage total, and with all due respect, I think it might have even been Trevor Harris that said it. I think it was he called it yards after garbage time or something like that. So take it with a grain of salt. And plus the other thing too is don't get too married with Pro Football Focus. It's fun. It's great that, they're kind of in the ballpark, but it's never 100% accurate because clearly the only people that know are the coaches. But I just look at this Saskatchewan team, and like I said earlier, I just think they have a point to prove. This is a team that, like I said, got out physical at home against Calgary, and I believe they're going to come into BC with a chip on their shoulder and ready to roll and ready to set the tone in the trenches.
Well, you saw with Calgary too last week, what they did is they got out to an early lead, and it totally forced the Riders to abandon Ouellette in the run game. Well, AJ Ouellette finished with 9 rushing yards last week, and Trevor Harris had to pass the ball 44 times and get those yards in garbage time, as Moji referenced. And that's a key for me here too. If the Lions can get ahead early, it's going to force the Riders to be one-dimensional. It's kind of goes without saying in a football game, but that's key because AJ Ouellette's had a bunch of success against the Lions in the past year and a half now. So, or I guess for 1 calendar year now, with the Watermelon Smash happening last January. And even looking at their injury report, Samuel Emelis is a full participant today. It's only day 1, but that's a good indication that he's going to be making his return to the lineup, and that's a huge addition, right? It seems like Sask has there are lots of pickings at the receiving core right now, and a guy like Joe Robustelli has, stepped up in the last couple of weeks. But with Emelis coming back, that could be literally their top target moving forward.
When I look at that game, I don't think it was that they made them one-dimensional. They just couldn't run the ball. That's what made them one-dimensional. It wasn't necessarily the score, because they were down 2 touchdowns in the third quarter, and they decided to go for it. And instead of kicking a field goal, and they failed on that attempt, and then later in the game they failed on another 3rd down conversion. But to me, I think they abandoned the run game. They had plenty of time to run the football and put points on the board. They just couldn't run the ball. And again, it goes back to what I talked about. They just got manhandled at the line of scrimmage, and they decided, hey, forget the run, we're going to abandon it and let's throw the football. So I think if you can be physical and you can do that again, to the point where they abandon the running game, I think that's a great sign. And like you said, it does make you one-dimensional. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens come Saturday.
Yeah, Ouellette's going to get more than 6 carries on Saturday. We can agree with that, right? So they're going to try and run the ball more. I think he got 20 plus against the Lions back in Week 3. So see where that goes.
Yeah, he was 23 for 139 and a major was AJ Ouellette. Yeah, I mean, again, if they can get him going, that's going to be a good little test for this Lions defensive line, which we've been singing the praises of. Getting back to Edmonton, and a guy to maybe watch out for here. One of those guys, when he gets targets and he's on. Javon Catoy, a lot of yards after the catch. That's an element that this offense can bring. I was impressed to see the big cat contribute big time.
Yeah, and he's a big target, and when he plays like he did against Edmonton, and that's being physical, that's going across the middle, taking shots. I believe it was Logan one time that just undercut him as soon as he caught a ball. And I love seeing Javon Catoy when he plays with that type of passion and that type of aggressiveness. I think that's when he's at the top of his game.
And again, just kind of resetting it. I mean, a big game in the West this week. Friday is Winnipeg and Calgary. That's the 4-1 Stampeders, the 3-1 Blue Bombers. Lions, if they get a win, would get to 4-3 and knock Saskatchewan back to 4-2. So depending what happens in that Winnipeg game, Nick, could have 4 of the 5 teams in the West sitting at 4 wins. Of course, this Lions team has played more games than anyone else because they're going to be the last team to get a bye in a couple of weeks. But, I mean, we've all been following this league a long time. Week 7, week 8, having a division as bunched up as this, again, could potentially have 4 teams at 4 wins. That's going to be heck of an exciting way to break it down.
Yeah, and not that the guys in this locker room or in this building care about this, but I think a win on Saturday would do a lot in, getting the national attention in terms of, putting the Lions in that top tier echelon, because right now I think Calgary's established themselves with their 4-1 start, right, to their top of the West Division. They've established themselves as a legit team in this league already. Winnipeg's Winnipeg. We know we can never count them out. Sask started 4-0. They're coming off a couple West Final appearances, or West Final appearance last year. And I think there's still some reservations about this Lions team, but as we've seen with Nathan Rourke, I think they can contend with anybody, but we're not going to find out until Saturday if this Lions team can get over Sask.
It's kind of a double-edged sword because people, are maybe taking the Lions 3 wins lightly. They're saying, well, you beat Edmonton twice and you beat Montreal with a backup quarterback, Montreal having a backup quarterback. But conversely, you can also talk about the fact that the Lions lost 2 games with a backup quarterback.
Exactly.
So it's kind of evens out on the wash. So it's funny, though, our good friend, the final say, Farhan Lalji, mentioned that it's starting to look like a crossover year, right? You're looking at the standing, and a win by the Lions here would probably go a long way in probably making that happen as well.
Well, I was joking last week in Montreal. I was like, we probably won't be seeing you again until we'll see you next week in August. I was talking to their comms guys and Sam, their video guy. But BC at Montreal, like, obviously you're not gunning for 4th place in the West, but Montreal could be the host in the East Final against a Western team. We've seen crazier things that have happened, but yeah, the East is in shambles right now. Argos have 1 win, Red Blacks have 1 win. Doesn't seem like Chad Kelly could be the savior, I guess, in Toronto, but they're not going to have any more success if they're allowing 50 points a game like they were against the Ticats the other week.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because looking at the Argos final injury report on Tuesday, they have Chad Kelly as available. I'm not sure if that's something. You mentioned Farhan. I think he said earlier this week he wouldn't expect him to play, but Toronto opens week 7 in Montreal Thursday. That's the Argos' 2nd trip to Montreal already this season. Remember, they opened the season there. Mentioned Calgary, Winnipeg. I know what I'm doing Friday night. I'm parked in front of the TV, maybe with a cold one, watching that one. 2 of the Western heavyweights.
Bakes. Don't give me parked in front of the TV with the beer. You're going to be vacuuming probably right up until game time, and then instead of having a beer in your arm, you're going to have your kid in your arm, and you're probably
doing Lego or something. Yeah. Multitasking. You're right. Thanks for
don't give me this macho. I'm going to be having a beer in front of my TV. You're a dad. Those days are gone, man.
Until she wants to go to the park, then there's no football on Friday. You're right. Thanks for keeping me on my toes.
Well, your Friday got ruined though by the cancel or postponement of the Riders game last week.
Yeah, it was all had the popcorn there and was going to sit, and I was going to do a little Lego at halftime with the kid, and had to watch the Blue Jays instead, unfortunately. But
crazy too.
Yeah, that was, I know there was, can you imagine that? And good for the Stampeders, though. It goes one or two ways if you're the visiting team. Understand they had to scramble and find a combination.
Yeah, we talked about it with Suits.
Yeah.
Right? So we went through that with Glen. So.
Exactly, yeah. And not easy. And week 7 wrapping up Sunday, it's a rematch. Hamilton in Ottawa. Yeah, you just got the sense the Red Blacks, they were letting Hamilton hang around too long on, Saturday night? We were watching that in Edmonton before the Weezer concert. Pretty fun road trip. And back to 4 games this week in, what is week 7? Where has the time gone?
It's flying by.
Middle of July. All right, coming up, we'll each give one area that we're going to zero in on with the Lions and Riders, and we're going to get you, the listeners, hyped up for Watermelon Smash. It's not just a football game Saturday. There's plenty happening at Save on Foods Field at BC Place. We'll wrap it all up with that on First and Now on 730 CKNW. Final few minutes on First and Now, presented by World Vision Canada, as well as our great pals at Coors Light. Roughriders in town. It's our 3rd annual Watermelon Smash. Nikki, Moj, remember, 2-0 in previous Watermelon Smashes. A 19-9 victory, one of those was. A nice defensive battle. Noon, Terry Fox Plaza. It's our backyard party presented by PlayNow Sports. Our biggest tailgate of the year as far as space goes. Expanded area out on Terry Fox. $5 Molson Coors products, barbecue included on the food menu item. Fans can smash watermelons as well, deemed unfit for stores, as long as you do a donation for Purelator Tackle Hunger, support the Surrey Food Bank. And don't worry, folks, none of these watermelons are going to waste. The ones that are smashed will be donated to local farms. Pigs love to eat watermelon too. Small fun fact. Hey, how about this? 50-50. 50-50.
Just like roll into I'm going to date myself here, but like Marlon Perkins in Wild Kingdom or what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Bakes is even too young. There used to be a show on Sunday nights on NBC when I was a kid. Wild Kingdom. Hey, somebody out there back me up. Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins. And they, show all these animals. And so you just went like Marlon Perkins on the time.
I'm just thinking of the radio listeners tuning in live. Oh, I'm going to catch them first and now. And they turn on the dial and it's Matt Baker talking about how pigs love watermelons. But Watermelon Smash Week calls for it.
Before we continue on the farm stuff, 50-50 jackpot, I was about to say, a guaranteed of $100,000 with the winner taking home at least 50 proceeds support amateur football. Yeah, it's been about 17 years since you were dancing on the table at the Mad Greek. Is that how you were celebrating that?
Probably that's been 15 at least.
It was the 2007 Western Final, I remember.
Yeah. So it's been a while. I'm due.
There you go. All right, you did some cool content with Kyle Nelson and Sean White at the farm. We encourage people to check out our YouTube channel. But before we wrap up here this Tuesday evening on CKNW, quick key to the game. Moj, we'll start with you. What are you looking at?
Always starts in the trenches for me. I thought the Lions did a great job on the offensive line, defensive line as well. And, that was an issue for Saskatchewan against Calgary. They got out physical at the line of scrimmage, and it's going to be interesting to see who wins that battle. Whoever wins the battle wins the football game. It's that simple, folks.
Nikki?
When I was watching back the past couple Lions and Riders games, the thing that really stood out to me was the winner of the game was the team who had the receiver. If the Lions receivers won their jump balls, their contested catches, they won the game. If they didn't, if the Riders made the plays, their defensive backs, the Riders won the game. So, Justin McInnes, Keon Hatcher, and Javon Catoy are all tied for second in the CFL with 6 contested catches each. They got to win those contested balls on Saturday. Got to beat guys like Roland Milligan and Marcus Sales if the Lions are going to win.
Going to be an interesting chess match for sure. I'm talking about the return game. I had a feeling Seven McGee was going to do something of significance, and he would have scored even without that penalty to Gary Peters. We're looking for an improvement there. That's why Seven went back in last week. Seven McGee, they can get a big one, at least flip the field with a big return. Doesn't necessarily have to score. That's going to be a huge key to success. Impact in the return game. All right, gentlemen, solid show as always. We'll be back next Tuesday ahead of a home game against Hamilton on Sunday, July 27th. Back-to-back home games before a bye week. A chance to make some more ground up in this crazy race like we've been talking about. Thanks to Glen Suitor for joining us, and thanks to you, the listener, as we wrap up First and Now on 730 CKNW.
Some families pass down recipes. Others pass down their love for the CFL. This Sunday, July 27th, bring your family to BC Place as the BC Lions take on the Hamilton Tiger Cats at our Family Traditions game. Share your Sunday dinner plans with us. Enjoy fun for all ages, a free family portrait studio, and unforgettable moments passed from one generation to the next. Tickets start at just $19. Visit bclions.com.
Roar as one!
All right, it's that time for those listening on the podcast. We bring in Cam Tucker for a little Between the Lines. Plenty to chew on for this big Week 7 battle, Lions and Saskatchewan Roughriders. Cam, how you doing?
I'm doing good, fellas. Looking forward to a big game this weekend. I love the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but putting a watermelon on my head, I'm just not there yet. But it's going to be a big game this week, and huge implications potentially in the West Division. So looking forward to it.
Very huge indeed. Lions opened actually as a 1.5 point underdog, I should say. Line shifting here to 1. So this one almost a pick 'em. Let's expand on that.
Yeah, really interesting yesterday. I expected the Lions to open as a slight underdog, and they did. So +1.5 yesterday. That line has shifted, as you said, Matt, to +1 today. And I mean, my expectation is, given the shift that we saw today, it's a small one, but given the shift today, that this definitely could move into a pick'em territory, which is essentially equal odds for both teams on the money line. And look, the Lions right now are riding a wave of momentum. I thought, they did what they needed to do in Montreal. It's a game where, they obviously had some things to clean up, but they did what they needed to do to get the win. Then they go into Edmonton, and I mean, been a few years since we've seen a dominant team effort like that across the board. I mean, defense played well, special teams could have had some more if it wasn't for a penalty. The offense was on point. The passing game, Nathan Rourke, I think that's one of his best games in a really long time. Obviously, you can see that the star power that he brings at the quarterback position when he's at the top of his game, and the run game. I mean, that's just insane. 30 carries for James Butler, over 172 yards rushing. Guys, we had his total for the game rushing yards at 55.5. The over hit in the second quarter. So no sweat on the over for that game. But that was a big team win. Across the board, they were dominant. And now you look to carry that into a game against Saskatchewan. It's going to be, it sounds like it's going to be a bigger crowd. The Saskatchewan fans always seem to show up. They're loud, and I think it's going to be a great atmosphere for this game, and for the Lions, a chance to move above 500, and that's big. I mean, you look at the West Division standings. There's the potential that there's 4 teams at the end of the week tied atop that division with 8 points. So this is a big one, and the Lions right now are riding some momentum going into this game for sure. So I'm not surprised that they opened as a slight underdog, but I can definitely see this moving into that pick'em territory.
Yeah, gotta love that star-studded Elks defense. But that playing that defense for Nathan Rourke, did that do anything for his MOP odds, Cam, or where are we looking at with that?
Yeah, so we saw Nathan Rourke's MOP odds shift to +500. And Nathan Rourke has been, at the top of the board for this award. He's been kind of in that 3-4 position for this award as the season's gone along. His odds have shifted week to week. Some of that's obviously been, his performance related. Some of that's been injury related. But right now he's tied with Davis Alexander for the third best odds to win MOP. But Levi Mitchell is actually the favorite right now at +300. And second on the board is Vernon Adams, who slid up the board after a big outing against the Saskatchewan Roughriders in week 6. But, looking at how this market has fluctuated throughout the course of the season, my expectation is if we see another performance like that from Nathan Rourke, where he's very close to perfect and he's over 300 plus yards and he throws 1, 2, or maybe even 3 touchdown passes, that my expectation would be that he would take over as the favorite when that market reopens again next week. And I think that that's definitely the potential, given how this market has fluctuated throughout the season. You remember after the game against Edmonton week 1, he actually did not enter that game with the best odds to win MOP, had a very good game, throwing the ball, throwing the ball and then running the ball. And he took over the following week as the favorite for MOP. So I could definitely see that happening again if he puts in another performance like he did on the weekend against Edmonton.
And as always, later in the week on PlayNow.com, you will have your bet boost up for the BC Lions. It's early, but what are we looking at for this week, Cam? Need a W.
Yeah, and I spoke to the guys this morning, and I think that we're looking for a pretty generous boost going into this game. It's a big one, guys. There's a lot of excitement around this game. And, I think that we've talked about it, and, we're probably looking at something with the BC Lions money line to win this game. And we are probably going to tack on something with Nathan Rourke passing yards. We just haven't determined the exact number yet. But given the run that Nathan Rourke Rourke is on in his last 2 games and how he played in week 1, I think that Nathan Rourke passing yards, this is definitely going to be something that's added into this parlay boost. And we're going to have that up on site, I'd expect, on Thursday or Friday at PlayNow.com. It's exciting. I mean, this is a big game. And the one thing that I really liked about the boost, or the potential for the boost this week, and talking with the guys, is Lions money line. I think that this is going to be a big game, a big test, and you clean up what happened in Montreal. I think you do enough to win that game, but then you show against Edmonton, like, look, we can be a very good football team if we put all 3 phases into play at the same time. And I thought that they were full marks for that win. Now you get Saskatchewan; it's a big game, and we're going to have that boost on site on Friday.
Tell you what, Cam Tucker, he's always a double-digit favorite in our hearts, and he clutched up once again. He covered once again, folks.
Fellas, I'm still dealing with the jet lag of traveling clear across the country on Sunday. But the nice thing was, I was on the plane, and I was watching the game on my phone, and it was full marks for the Lions, and so the excitement right now, I think, is building for this week.
Yeah, I thought I saw you flying over Commonwealth on Sunday. It checks out.
Yeah, that was the plane that kept circling over. Yeah,
you saw that, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Topic.
Yeah. Hey, can you guys just fly, instead of going to Calgary, can you divert to Edmonton so that we can check out the game here? But yeah.
Very well said. We will see you on the scoreboard and in stadium here coming up on Saturday, and we'll talk again next week. Hopefully, we're talking about more of those lines for the MOP moving. As next week, we'll look ahead to Hamilton. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Take care.